Black college sports and then some. We got it right here on HSRN The Network, the voice of HBCU sports.
You're listening to Green Talk for Brown Folks with Ryan Marshall on HSRN.
Well, hello, everybody. It's Ryan Marshall again, your host of GTBF Green Talk for Brown Folks. I'm so excited to be back here for our episode number 5. And we're still talking about creating comfortable retirement. This is part 3, the final part of this 3-part conversation about retirement, how to live the life that you have imagined, how to get there and be able to have enough money, not outlive the resources that you have, and to be able to grow more money with different financial vehicles. And I think we talked a lot about different ways that you can get to that comfortable retirement. We started in the first 2 parts of creating comfortable retirement, started talking about some general strategies that you could use in order to be able to grow and have the type of retirement that you imagine that you desire. Starting early and not procrastinating, reducing the amount of losses, reducing the amount of taxes that you have, and then outpacing inflation. And so those were some general ways that you could help to grow the money that you have to set aside for retirement. A lot of people, they put their retirement money in an employer-sponsored retirement plan. Either a 401k, a 403b, if you're a nonprofit, or if you are education, 457 if you're government, TSP, thrift savings plan. And while people put that money in their employer-sponsored retirement plans, one of the things that a lot of people may not fully realize is that with some, not all, employer-sponsored retirement plans, you can dictate how you want to contribute to your employer-sponsored retirement plan, whether it's going to be pre-tax, and most people contribute pre-tax or after-tax. And so pre-tax, the money, you drop that money in from your paycheck, that money, that contribution gets to grow without being taxed. In exchange for allowing that money to grow tax deferred, you can take tax deductions. That is tax deductible each and every year, your contribution. So if you contributed $10,000 a year in your employer-sponsored retirement plan, then you can deduct $10,000 off of your taxable income. Of course, then when you start to use that money for retirement purposes and you start withdrawing that money is then fully taxable at your income rate, at your income tax bracket. Then there's after tax. We talked about after tax. We talked about some financial vehicles that you can use in reducing taxes. What's popular to a lot of people is Roth Iras. You know, it's an after-tax vehicle that allows you to grow your cash tax-free, or it's after taxes. So the contribution, that money that you have that you're contributing to a Roth IRA, it's already assumed to have been taxed. So that money can grow tax-free so long as you keep that money inside of that plan in the first 5 years without withdrawing it. Because if you do, then that money then becomes taxable as income. And so some people, you know, obviously they may have a need for that money. And we talked about having a solid emergency fund so then that way you don't have to dip into your retirement, because if you do, if you're younger than 59 and a half, not only could it be a taxable event, it could also be a penalty that you're assessed from the IRS. So we talked about those financial vehicles. One of the ways we never really got a chance to really dive in when talking about retirement is with life insurance. There's 2 different types of life insurance. There's term life insurance. So generally, life insurance that is going to give you coverage for a certain amount of time, a term, usually 10, 20, or 30 years. It's temporary. Then there is permanent life insurance. And most permanent life insurance has a cash value component. So a portion of your premium goes to taking care of keeping that policy in force. then another portion of the premium, the rest of it goes to a cash value component. And that cash value component can grow tax-free. It's the only financial vehicle in the Internal Revenue Code that you can contribute to that tax-free. You can borrow money against it tax-free in the form of a loan against the policy. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. You can grow your money potentially at market rates with no market downside volatility. You can pass that money off to your heirs tax-free, so long as it's a lump sum amount that they get tax-free. And it's just life insurance. I think a lot of people, especially a lot of people in Black and brown communities, they look at life insurance as an expense. Life insurance is something that provides a death benefit only. And at the very core of it, life insurance does provide a death benefit. Yes, so if something happens to you, you're protected, you have life insurance, your beneficiaries, your heirs will have those proceeds to be able to take care of those responsibilities that were left behind, any debts, any lost income, paying for kids' education, being able to create a legacy, and so on and so forth. But you can also grow wealth through life insurance in that way. And so one of the ways that you can use life insurance through retiring or through use of retirement is you can use and take a policy loan against the cash value. And so one of the things that I always say is that you have to have enough cash value in order to be able to sustain the policy. And so you don't want to take more money than is needed to sustain the policy. And then you also want to be able to get into a policy. The only way that you can really do this and you can supplement your retirement tax-free is with permanent life insurance. Or term life insurance doesn't have a cash value component. It's just pure insurance protection. But permanent insurance, you want to be able to define the right type of permanent life insurance to be able to do this. And there are 4 different types of permanent insurance. And so there's whole life, universal life, index universal life, variable universal life. They all do very different things. And so one of the things that we talk about is with respect to how your cash is grown inside of that life insurance policy, you want to be able to get a good enough rate of return on your money that you're going to have some significant growth. And in certain policies or certain types of life insurance, you're just not going to be able to get that type of growth. But in others, you can potentially get market return with no market downside risk. So coming up in the second segment, we're going to dive into the different types of permanent life insurance, the ones that definitely grow wealth and grow cash inside of that life insurance policy that you can use to supplement your retirement or fund your retirement completely. This is GTBF, Green Talk for Brown Folks, with your host, Ryan Marshall. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Green Talk for Brown Folks with Ryan Marshall on HSRN.
Welcome back, everybody, to GTBF, Green Talk for Brown Folks. I'm your host, Ryan Marshall. I am really excited to get into episode 5, Creating Comfortable Retirement, part 3. And we are diving into using life insurance to help supplement your retirement income or helping to fund your retirement entirely. And so let's really dive into the 4 different types of permanent life insurance policies and kind of how they work. And you want to find the one that's going to give you the best rate of return on your money. And so those 4 different types of permanent life insurance: whole life, universal life, index universal life, and variable universal life. And we kind of get into those. And one of the things that I have discovered is that right now, whole life policies probably aren't going to give you the type of return that you're probably looking for to really significantly significantly overcharge or supercharge your cash value growth. Generally these days, and we're talking about today, maybe not in the 1970s and the 1980s, whole life policies were maybe giving you 7, 8, 9% return on your money. But today, you would be very hard pressed to find a whole life policy that gives you a cash value return 4%. And so with whole life, how it's structured or how it's set up is that the insurance company gives you a guaranteed rate of return on your money. And so you have this permanent policy. A portion of that goes to keeping the policy in force, and then the rest of that goes to your cash value. And your cash value grows at a fixed rate of return, generally no more than 4%. Now think about this, 4%, better than a bank. The average banking account interest rate is 0.09%. And so you're talking about 0.09%. As opposed to 4%. 4% is a lot better than 0.09%. So if your money's just sitting in a bank account, your money generally isn't growing. Then on top of that, in a bank account, that's a taxable financial vehicle, especially with savings accounts. If you've saved enough money to earn any sort of interest on that account, then you'll get a 1099 in the mail saying, hey, thanks for saving in this bank account, but unfortunately, the interest that you earned in that savings account is fully taxable as income, and it's going to be taxable at your income tax bracket. Now, the catch, one of the things we talked about whole life, you'd be hard-pressed to find a company that will give you a greater return than 4%. It's a guaranteed rate of return. Now, they'll guarantee that you'll never lose, so that's a good thing. So you take market volatility off the table, but at 4%, the average rate of inflation is 3%. So think about this. Your money's purchasing power your money is losing purchasing power each and every year. So with the rate of inflation averaging 3%, we're talking about the cost of goods and services, the cost of automobiles, and the cost of stamps and clothing and groceries and gas and things like that, services and houses and all of that stuff. They're going to cost 3% more next year in 2022. Then they're going to cost 3% more the following year and the following year. In the last 100 years, the average rate of inflation has been around 3%. So if your money is only growing and they're guaranteeing you 4% rate of return, that's really a net return of 1%. So your money really isn't growing. The net return on that is 1%. That's one of the ways that you are going to grow wealth, is to significantly outpace the rate of inflation. We talked about this, not procrastinating. So then that way your money, you can have the time element of your money to allow it to compound. Significantly outpacing inflation, reducing taxes, and reducing the risk of loss. So a whole life policy, is generally not going to give you the cash value return that you're really looking for to be able to significantly save for retirement. Same thing with generally universal life policies. If you're just wanting to have a policy in place and want to make sure that you're going to pass that death benefit, then a lot of people will either get a whole life or a universal life policy. And so there's nothing wrong with that. Some people just want to be able to pass that on tax-free. I have $100,000 or $200,000 policy. I want to just guarantee that I can keep this policy in force, and that will allow me to be able to do it as long as I pay my premiums every month. I'm going to be able to have this policy in force. So whole life is a fixed death benefit and a fixed premium. So it's the death benefit and the premiums are tied together. So as your premium increases, generally your death benefit increases. If your premium decreases, then the death benefit that you get generally decreases. Then there was the advent of universal life, which was flexible premium and flexible death benefit. And so around the 1970s, people started to realize that, okay, you had all of these benefits and tax advantages to life insurance. So life insurance is the only financial vehicle in the Internal Revenue Code that you can contribute to that financial vehicle tax-free. That money is going to grow tax-free. You can take policy loans against the cash value, and the Internal Revenue Code does not consider that income, and so as such, that is tax-free. You can pass this money off as a death benefit to your heirs completely tax-free, so long as this money is passed off in one lump sum. You can, in some cases, get market rates and avoid market losses. So in the 1970s, people started to realize, the rich and the wealthy and the affluent started to realize, you know what? The more assets that I have, the larger my taxable liability is. And so what I want to do is I want to reduce my taxable liability. I have all of these millions of dollars and I've got them spread out in different places, bank accounts and stocks and mutual funds and ETFs and things like that, property, all of that increases my taxable value or my taxable liability. One of the things with life insurance, though, is that this can decrease your taxable liability by the cash value not being considered an asset. And as such, what happens is the money that you place inside of life insurance cash value not being considered an asset, that money is not reportable to the IRS. And so as such, now you're reducing your taxable liability. And with the advent of universal life in the 1970s, they started figuring out that, okay, with all of these tax advantages that I have over all of these other financial vehicles, you mean to tell me I can get as little life insurance as I want and dump as much money into it as possible? And so life insurance was basically just in the 1970s went unchecked. You could almost do anything that you wanted to do with it. So you see these guys getting these $10,000 life insurance policies, dumping $500,000 into them, getting market return on their money, the ability to take policy loans against the growth of their market return, the money that they had in this cash value growing at market rates, anywhere between 9 and 20% return. So you mean to tell me I could take my money out after it's grown at market rates with no market downside risk, and that money that I pull out is not considered income? So as such, I can just basically just take a tax-free loan. I can pass this money off to my heirs. And yes, and yes. So what was happening was wealthy people were eating life insurance up. They were just buying it in droves. Starting in 1982, Congress stepped in and said, we have to put guardrails on life insurance because it was too good of a thing. And so we got what's called TEFRA, DEFRA, and TAMRA. TEFRA, I don't want to get too deep into this, but TEFRA in 1982, the Tax Equity and Fiscal Responsibility Act of 1982. DEFRA, the Deficit Reduction Act of 1984, and TAMRA in 1988, the Technical and Miscellaneous Revenue Act of 1988. And so they put guardrails on life insurance, and they said that not only could you not just take a little bit of life insurance, and I'm just talking really high level here, you had to have a percentage of life insurance based on the amount of cash value that you had. You couldn't just take a couple $1,000s of life insurance and then just dump an insane amount of money into the cash value and grow it basically infinitely, get market return, be able to take income-free tax loans out, pass this off income tax-free, and just do all of these things. So what they said was they put these guardrails on and said that you can put, with the advent of universal life, creating flexible premiums and flexible death benefits, you can put as little or as much money into a premium within the guidelines that Congress has set within a particular life insurance policy and not have it be considered an investment. And so what that did was it limited how wealthy people can just really take advantage of this good thing with life insurance, and just make infinite bucket loads of money and avoid taxation. A lot of us call it tax loopholes. So what they call it, if it goes outside of those guardrails of the amount of money that you're putting in, either on the bottom side or the top side, it becomes what's called a modified endowment contract. And in the eyes of the Internal Revenue Code and the IRS, it then becomes an investment. And once it becomes a modified endowment contract, it is always a modified endowment contract. And you lose a lot of the tax advantage benefits that you get with life insurance. You can grow wealth within life insurance. So just really high level. Coming up on the final segment of GTBF Green Talks to Brown Folks, we're going to talk about Index Universal Life and Variable Universal Life and why the IUL is my favorite way when using life insurance to safely grow cash and supplement your retirement income. This is GTBF with your host, Ryan Marshall. We'll be right back.
You are listening to Green Talk for Brown Folks with Ryan Marshall on HSRN.
Welcome back to GTBF. I'm your host, Ryan Marshall. Okay, let's get into talking about Index Universal Life and Variable Universal Life. Now, Index Universal Life is a way that you can, same way with all the other types of permanent life insurance, a portion of your premium goes to keeping the policy in force. The rest of it goes to the cash value, and that cash value grows based on the performance of an underlying stock market index. It's not a physical security. It's not a physical investment in a particular stock market fund. But the stock market index fund could be based on the S1E 500, or it could be based on the Russell 2000 or one of the other indexes. And however that performance goes, generally, they give you you get to participate in most of the upside performance up to a certain cap, generally anywhere between on average of 9 to 20%. They also guarantee that you're never going to lose. And the biggest difference between the Index Universal Life and a Variable Universal Life is the money that you put in a cash value, that money is placed in a separate account. And that money is almost like invested in a particular fund, like a mutual fund almost. So you choose the particular funds that you want to invest in based on the insurance company's and the underlying portfolio funds that are in there, and that money can grow much like a mutual fund where you can get all of the gain. So if that market goes 20%, you get 20%. If the market grows 30 or 40 or 50%, you get that. But then you take all of the losses, as opposed to the Index Universal Life policy that shields you from market volatility. In the Variable Universal Life, you can take market losses. So last year when the market declined 30%, if your funds were heavily invested in aggressive funds, your money also lost, which means that anytime your money loses, that money comes off of your cash value and can decrease your death benefit. So that's the biggest reason why I favor Index Universal Life policies over Variable Universal Life policies at this particular time, just because you can use that to grow your money and get most of the upside performance with none of the downside risk, as opposed to a VUL where you can get the upside, you can get all of it, but then you can lose all of it too. And so that's one of the biggest differences there with that. The great thing is, in either an IUL or a VUL, you can supplement your retirement. You can take, again, the same concept, taking a policy loan against the policy as opposed to a withdrawal. If you're going to be able to use this money to supplement your retirement Or in the case of using it for your retirement, you want to take a loan against the cash value, a policy loan, as opposed to a withdrawal. A policy loan gives you the ability to take income tax-free loan against that policy. Because remember, the IRS doesn't see this as income, and as such, you're not charged income tax. The money that you take out in a withdrawal as opposed to a policy loan is taxable, potentially taxable. So the amount of money beyond what you have contributed in the life insurance policy, that's called the cost basis, your amount that you've contributed, that would be considered your return of premium. So that wouldn't be taxed. But any money that was grown from your contributions, that money would be taxable. So that's the biggest difference between a policy loan, a loan against your policy, and a withdrawal in that as well. So you definitely want to be careful with that. But life insurance can be very powerful, and a very powerful way for you to, one, create a legacy, two, use it not just for the death benefit of passing that off to your heirs, but then also living benefits like supplementing your retirement income. I hope this has been very helpful and beneficial. Thank you so much for tuning in to Green Talk for Brown Folks. We're going to take this conversation in a little bit of a different direction next week. You won't want to miss it. We'll be here next Friday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Until then, I'm Ryan Marshall. See you later.
Thanks for listening to Green Talk for Brown Folks with Ryan Marshall on HSRN. Follow Ryan's social media on Twitter at Ryan H. Marshall and on Instagram, RHM WealthWave. You can also connect with him via email at ryan.marshall@howmoneyworks.com. That's ryan.marshall@howmoneyworks.com. Join him next Friday at 1 p.m. for another edition of Green Talk for Brown Folks.